Nothing changes instantaneously. In a gradually heating bathtub, you'd be boiled to death before you knew it. Our Father, who art in heaven. Seriously? What the actual fuck?
Gilead doesn't care about children. Gilead cares about power.
Why does healing have to be the only goal? Why can't we be as furious as we feel?
For whatever man sows, so shall he reap.
Welcome to Above the Garage. Hi, friends. Welcome to our discussion of Season 6, Episode 8 of The Handmaid's Tale. Let's do our round of introductions and dive in.
Hi, I'm Raquel.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
Hi, I'm Julia.
And I'm Kate. Okay, first things first. To our amazing listeners, you really made our week last week, and we appreciate you so much. We've had well over 100 incredibly sweet and meaningful comments and DMs from listeners across the different platforms in response to our last episode. And I just want to say that every single one of those messages means the world to us and does exactly for us what we're hoping to do for you, makes us feel a bit better and reinforces our sanity, of which we're confident, I promise, but it's just nice to have you all for further support. Thank you for listening and for commenting and just being out there feeling the same way. If the only thing that comes out of this whole show is seeing how intelligent and passionate and strong and smart this particular community is, then that's something we can take with us and be so proud of. Since the distraction of the Nick and June drama persists, this episode, and also our final two episodes, will likely discuss Nick a lot too. So if you hate him, you're almost certainly not going to want to listen to these episodes. But I know there'll be plenty of Nick discussion throughout since he's in this episode quite a bit, and also because the other panelists on this episode today haven't spoken on the podcast since early in the season, so they haven't had a chance to share their opinion on recent events in the story, which are notable. And to one of the commenters on the YouTube episode that respectfully asked if we could represent the opposing opinion on Nick also, I definitely understand your request. And on most shows, we have lots of differing opinions. Even on this one, I'm not really loving Mark Tuello while Kimberly adores him. And I love that about us. But in our group of 16 people, there is actually not a single group member who agrees with how the show is suddenly representing Nick. So we quite literally don't have anyone that could do that with any honesty. The showrunners themselves are doing a lot of interviews you would probably love, though. And there are other Handmaids podcasts out there which are great, and I imagine their opinions on Nick are more aligned with yours if you want to check them out. While I'm recommending other people's Handmaids content, I would like to quickly recommend you check out all the hilarious and brilliant videos in the Handmaids community on TikTok. Both commentary on the show at large and more specific discussion on Nick's specific turns in the show, all such great content. We especially love Pros Without Thorns for her recent videos on Nick and Luke in episode 7. And if you are a fan of Nick that has just found our podcast this week, we highly recommend going back and listening to our own episode 7 discussion. Obviously, the topic will continue to come up, but last week's discussion was a very comprehensive discussion of Nick's actual history across the 6 seasons of the show. We go into great detail about all the facts the show seems to want us to forget about Nick's character and how he actually got his Gilead promotions, all as a result of actually very good things he did against Gilead, not what they're saying in the interviews. Okay, now on to this episode. Serena is getting married. So, the first few minutes of this episode is a montage of the handmaid's cloaks being made in mass quantities for the upcoming rebellion plan, to a voiceover of June blaming the collapse of America on clothes, presumably both literally and metaphorically regarding all the superficial things people care about and spend money on. And then she's talking about Gilead's treatment of clothes, how they use them to divide and classify people by color, to dehumanize them and reduce them to identity by station and costume. But tonight, they're going to use those very same clothes as weapons to start a war. I love the music behind the scene. I had to Shazam it. It's the national anthem by Radiohead. It's so good.
Oh, another Radiohead. I love that.
Yes, they're really repping Radiohead this season. And she ends it on something I feel like I've heard before in this show, although I couldn't place where, that they forgot that red is also the color of rage. Or maybe it was like promos last season. I can't remember. Anyway.
So I had a question about the opening montage that shows Moira and June sewing the blades into the handmaid's robes, because it looked like, I was like, okay, that looks really clever. Like they're sewing the blades into all the robes so that everybody has their weapon on them. But then later we see them passing the blades down to all the handmaids. So it just made me wonder, like, did they carry all of them in their own cloaks?
I think so, yeah. I think that's what...
I was very confused.
I think it was just Moira and June that had them.
So they had all of them in their 2 cloaks.
Yeah. Presumably just in case anybody got court,
Right.
because they would be the ones that are not with their actual commanders and their families.
But you'd think in that case their particular gowns would be hanging like so heavily and look so different.
True, yeah.
Like if you put a weight in a gown at all, it's going to look like it's hanging very differently. Now if you put 100 of them, it's going to be like very noticeable. So I don't know. It's strange. And I got confused too because they hand out these blades twice in the episode, right? They hand them out down the pew and then they hand them out again at the reception. And I'm just very confused about the logistics of exactly what's happening in all these scenes. But
in the church, I thought like it's the Mayday and Red Center handmaids, right? The ones who walk in first,
right.
The ones who prepared all those things. And then we have later this walk in a specific order. Like the Mayday and Red Center handmaids are already sitting there. Then there's the commanders walking in, then there's the wives walking in, and then there are
more handmaids.
Supposedly they are household handmaids. I thought it was like the handmaids of the households. So and they are passing the blades they prepared in the Red Center to the household handmaids so they can kill their commanders and wives with them. I thought.
Right. Is that what they do at the reception though?
This is the confusing part. I don't get because they already gave them.
We're doing it again. Maybe there was more people at the reception. That was another wedding.
Yeah, maybe they're doing like the other Red Center handmaids at the wedding, even though that would be a really stupid plan and way more dangerous than sewing it into their robes. And then at the reception, they're giving it to the household handmaids. But who knows? Fun fact about the handmaids' gowns. I learned from someone this season that all the handmaid gowns that they use for the show and the testaments and events like premieres, those are all originals made in Anne Crabtree's time. Like they don't remake any. They have to lend out a certain number. They have a certain number of gowns and that's all they can work with. And it was like, I think hard with the premieres and the testaments filming to allot the gowns. So I was really interested. I was like, wow, I'm surprised they wouldn't just make more like they're doing in this episode. Very cool.
It also must be kind of many because I counted a little the group of handmaids that walks out of the Red Center.
Yeah, it's so many.
I did not count everyone, but it's like around 70 or 80 handmaids walking out.
Yeah.
That's like quite the number.
Unless they do like VFX or something to add to it. But yeah, I'm sure they have to have so many gowns. They must have hundreds of gowns is what I assumed. So I was surprised. As they file out to head to the wedding, the women are now wearing coverings over their mouths and bottom half of their faces. This hasn't been a thing all season, right? This is, I guess, just because he's a DC commander and they did that crazy shit in DC?
I think this was my note that similarly to the Marthas, now they're just covering their faces.
Yeah.
I think that must be a new rule.
Whatever the reason, it's very convenient for June and Co. as they're trying to sneak into a wedding.
That's literally my note, yeah. Yeah.
It worked out nicely.
They gave us a reason in 6-3 at the Jezebels, just that it was supposed to prevent temptation
for the Marthas,
of the commanders or whatever, which seemed dumb. But I didn't realize that all of the handmaids, because I guess back in season 3, they were trying to implement that. They were trying to implement the veils. So maybe they finally did it.
I think they're meant to have those like blinders as well on the cups, right? They're not even meant to be looked at. Like they can't even lift their eyes to people.
I remember when I read the book initially, I was really confused trying to picture that.
Yeah, the wings, yeah, that's what they're called.
Because I remember thinking after I saw the show, like, oh, I thought it was going to be a lot more like bigger and more complicated than what it was in the show, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
There's a beautiful shot at the top of the interior of the church before the aerial lowers to show most of Gilead is seated at this point. There are TV cameras, so it really is like Fred's funeral, and Lawrence and Calhoun lead the commanders processing in. June watches Nick escort a very pregnant Rose in on his arm. He takes care to get her seated before he walks up to the altar for some insane reason. And next in is Commander Wharton, looking quite smug as he proceeds to his place in front of Nick. I guess Nick is moonlighting as the preacher in Boston when he can get away from New Bethy. Yeah. Seriously, in this land of religion, why do we not have an actual religious representative?
Because they killed everyone who was actually religious.
Right, yeah, I guess. But it's super strange that Nick is officiating this wedding.
It's weird.
Is he officiating it? I thought he was just giving a speech.
Well, there's no other guy up there to officiate it, or woman, which obviously wouldn't happen here.
Yeah.
And, if you've been to a wedding, usually they're up there at the beginning.
Yeah, that's true.
So anyway, it's quite strange. On that same note, do you guys remember the like mass baptism in season 3 or something? Did they have a religious actual preacher or representative of some sort?
I presume so, but even with other weddings, when Nick gets married,
yes,
that's just price. So I don't.
Yeah,
probably they don't. Yeah.
So I was watching June as she watched Nick and Rose come in, and I know her face is covered, so we have to pay attention to her eye acting. And also, I could tell, I thought that her mouth seemed to open as she was watching them come in. It reminded me of the expression she had on her face when she spots Nick up on the Jumbotron thing during Fred's funeral. Like it was the same type of visceral reaction seeing him come in.
Yeah, I do think she does have a reaction to that specific moment. I don't know if it was more like seeing Rose so pregnant.
I mean, it's the first time she saw him again after their fallout, I guess. So
Yeah, and the only time she's ever seen Rose, she hasn't seen his wife. But I also noticed that her she doesn't look angry. She doesn't look angry, and she doesn't look like she's shooting daggers at him. And you can compare how she is with Serena later in the episode when she's rolling her eyes and definitely being more hostile in her looks towards Serena.
Yeah, I don't know if we're seeing it the way we want to see it, but I would agree that she seems more like inquisitive about Nick and how he's processing things and acting and all of that versus, yeah, Serena, she just wants to respond and she's very angry. That's pretty funny though, that she couldn't. Serena's got the spotlight now. Another great aerial shot of her train. Her dress is a light blue, similar to how her Fred's funeral dress was actually a really, really deep teal, which you could not see on screen, but Aubrey and I could see it up close at Paley in New York. Anyway, Serena walks by a gorgeous Naomi and Rita, and in general looks thrilled. She's back in the center of attention in Gilead. She also looks quite happy when she joins Commander Wharton, though she does take a deep breath when Nick starts speaking, and maybe she's having some second thoughts, maybe not, who knows? Anyway, Nick is doing a Bible reading about devotion to your wife, which is, of course, insane. But with the TV cameras rolling and Wharton having apparently, I guess, asked him to do this, he's performing as expected. While he talks, the handmaids start handing out their knives. I thought they were box cutters at first, but at the end of the episode, we see their actual switchblades, which is cool. And we already talked about what's happening here that confused me. Exactly who's getting the knives now versus later versus in the montage preparing it. Anyway, one of them drops her weapon loudly and alerts the Guardian, who comes in to look around. June's frantically shaking her head at someone. Is she telling her not to pick it up, I guess?
yeah, I felt like stay calm, like just act normally,
Like she didn't know that though. It's not like she's gonna like freak out.
yeah, it's like you saw the headmaid's panicked eyes. She's like, oh my god, don't move.
Right. I mean, that's fair, but she's not gonna bend over, pick up the knife, and freak out, you know? Like, whatever. I feel like June frantically shaking her head is more.
Yeah. I don't know if the handmaid that dropped the blade would even be able to see June's reaction. Because they're also like covered and like no moving. So yeah, as you said, it's just making it more obvious than needed.
Yeah.
So Nick's up there giving a speech and she can't take her eyes off him. And I'm thinking like, whatever's going through her head, when you've just broken up with someone, especially someone you've had like a really deep relationship with like that, you don't stop loving them overnight. I think she seems very affected seeing up there. She doesn't seem angry or hateful, but I also think she's studying him. Like she's observing him in Gilead surroundings and kind of noting his behavior because she has never really been able to do that, I don't think, and he doesn't know she's there. So this is sort of, a time when she can sort of observe him in his quote unquote natural habitat. And also, does he say mine own when he says, the blessings of mine own wife and bringing forth mine own child?
I don't know. It sounds right for Gilead.
How Serena talks sometimes is just so weird. Yeah.
Oh, that was
yeah, the child of my life or something.
The son of my life.
The son of my life. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like Gilead, and I do think it's clear he's performing.
Yes.
For the television and all of Gilead.
I think Max does a good job at that because you can see that it's almost like
he does. It's very different from Nick.
Completely putting on an act, yeah.
That was the other thing I thought, is that I think Nick has become very good at putting forth who he's supposed to be in the world and in that world and who people are expecting him to be. So I think it's kind of what we've always said, like he puts a mask on.
Mm-hmm.
I actually disagree. I think from the scenes that we see of him, I certainly think that's true overall this season. We have seen him be more of when he's with the other commanders, like speak a little bit more like he should. Nothing like the other commanders, but he has to speak now, I guess, is what I'm saying. Whereas before he would just be like standing in the room silently. But in these scenes that you see her studying him in this wedding, he looks miserable as fuck. Like he's not living it up in Gilead. He's not happy. He's not enjoying his life. He's just depressed and drinking.
Yeah, you see that more later on in the...
Yeah.
Yeah. We aren't there yet. Absolutely.
Because you do see him like smiling as Wharton comes up and as Serena comes up and giving the speech. But certainly like after that part, after he's put on a show, I think when you see him go back to, well, at the reception, right? Like Raquel said, I feel like it's, he looks miserable.
I also thought that like when he was giving this speech, he was looking like really greasy and sweaty, which can be side effects of
nervous or
severe alcoholism too, because he was drinking, like he's drinking a lot.
Yeah, I think that's it too. He's drinking. He's like big gulps. He's not sipping. He's taking big gulps.
So yeah, and also the part when he's talking about that he was blessed that he has a child on his way and stuff like this, which is expected to be about Rose and her pregnancy, but you can also see like a little like a wry smile. Like I don't know how to actually explain it, but you could see it's like for him it has kind of also a different meaning, like because he's thinking maybe also about June and Holly and that situation and how this will not going to happen anymore now that June thinks that he's a monster, in his own words.
Yeah, I feel like he probably compartmentalizes pretty well when he has to perform. And
I thought that too.
But I feel like my opinion of what's happened in the last few episodes is that he's breaking more and more. And even though you do see him being very Gilead-y in the wedding and putting on the act, I do think in his mind he must have been thinking about these things, because I think that's literally been the whole arc for him this season. Like he's really struggling to keep everything down.
Yeah, I have to imagine he wants to die right now, and
yeah,
it's terrible because he has literally nobody.
Yep,
nobody that cares about him at this point. I mean, hopefully 9 and 10. I do like that she's looking at him without contempt in this episode.
Yeah, it's hopeful.
But I don't like that they're having him perform up there for this episode. It's stupid.
Yeah. Well, again, it's just for the audience as well as June. The writers are really trying to point out that he's Gilead and he's doing all these things and he's this big man. And he's doing it in front of June, so June also sees that.
The writers are putting him there, but he doesn't know he's in front of June, or he wouldn't be able to keep this up. Yeah.
No, of course, yeah.
I just think that Max has done a fantastic job all season, even in the season when they're clearly trying to make him an evil Gilead commander, perhaps. I think he's done such a good job of being consistent Nick that we've always known, because Nick has always been found between the lines. I mean, he's always been found between the lines. Yes, they used to write kinder lines for him, and that helped. But now that they've decided to not write kinder lines for him, he's still maintaining his consistency as Nick, and it is a large reason, I think, why. Personally, I think the fans are not going to turn on him the way that they think they are.
Yeah.
And I think that's all due to Max and his being consistent and his acting, his facial acting and his body language, and everything in between the lines has stayed exactly the same. He takes every single death like so hard, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'd like to see the script for these episodes, because I wonder if there's any of that in it. I don't think there will be.
I don't think there will be.
How much of that would be direction of the writers or the directors?
Yeah.
And how much of it that is Max? And I think probably all of it is Max.
Yeah, I mean, there's the scripts, and then there's a lot that happens between the scripts and when it comes to your screen, right? And my take, which we don't know anything yet, just because of the last episode speaking to us, is that the writers wanted him. They want the viewers to think he's this big, bad, awful person. And I don't think that's what's going to happen, because between the script that they wrote and what came on screen is Max filling in with all of his acting. And he's the same Nick we've always seen. So why would we think, oh, yeah, okay, because he made one mistake, because he was cornered, he's suddenly a terrible guy. Like, that's just not how it works. And I question if they give enough due to like what happens in between their script and the screen. But we'll see.
And I wouldn't be surprised if he hadn't been given much direction in the scripts, because I haven't looked at all of them. But when I went to the library to look at the first 2 seasons, I was shocked that in season 2, episode 5, Nick, I mean, this whole wedding ceremony scene that was revolving around his character, there's almost zero for his performances. I mean, it's all him. Like anything that he does on screen was all him.
Yeah.
So they probably won't write a lot of that in there. But whatever they did write, he nailed it for what we've always known to be consistent with his character. So I agree 100%.
Yeah. I don't think, like, when you read those scripts, did it seem like they gave a lot of thought to Nick? Because I guess at this point in the game, I feel like they don't give much thought to that character, whereas they would for Serena, etc. They would give more notes as to how she should be acting. But I don't know. I have to go read them.
I don't know. I mean, overall, that one stood out to me because it was so focused on his character.
Yeah,
so I
you'd
would have
think.
thought, yeah,
Right.
I would have thought there would be lines of notes. I can't remember if him looking up at June was even in the script.
Yeah.
But it's been a while since I've read them. But I do remember that struck me.
For sure. I wouldn't remember anything years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry for that tangent. And now it's reception time. Always excited to get to the reception, and this is no different. It's slightly blue, like Serena's dress, and Aunt Phoebe asks the two groups of handmaids to greet each other. Like we discussed, and you guys actually clarified this for me. One is the Red Center handmaids, I guess, and one is the household handmaids. And then it's time for the bride and groom dance. And it's during this dance that they hand out the weapons to the household handmaids. June's watching Nick closely. Nick tries to smile at Rose, but fails, generally looking completely miserable while he sits down and downs a drink. Serena rises from her bridal table to have a chat with Lawrence. She compliments him on looking nervous, to which he defends himself by nervously laughing. And she starts waxing poetic about reforms, which usually perks Lawrence right up, but he's over it seems. All the more power to you, Serena. She moves on in her arrogance tour, claiming she's headed to visit her most important guests next. And poor Lawrence is visited by yet another hated Gileadian, perhaps the worst of them all. Belle is bragging about how he's finally got Janine to himself. He's so disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, the dancing scene was again like kind of reminded me of the one in season 3 when they were in the sea, and also like because it's kind of, I feel like overdone with the dancing parallel by now, because you had this whole big montage in season 3 of Fred and Serena. Then you have got Wharton wooing Serena with mentioning having seen her dancing. Then they dance in front of whatever house in New Bethlehem. And now we have this dance, so it's like, okay, yeah, we get it.
Yeah. The screen time spent on dancing is occasionally frustrating, but I guess they're doing it because Wharton said he watched the DC dance, right? And that's when he coveted thy neighbor's wife.
Well, this is the only dance that actually makes sense because it's at a wedding.
Yeah.
I was later about to say that. Yeah.
It's like their first dance, which
this one actually makes sense.
Yeah. Turns out Serena's most important guests are the handmaids. As she approaches, June realizes she's in trouble because Serena should be able to pick out her eyes from a million miles away at this point. So she shuffles further into the back along with Moira. And Phoebe does an excellent job of trying to usher her away at the first possible moment, and it almost works, but Serena's just too arrogant for that. She has to turn back around and try to convince the handmaids that her own handmaid has forgiven her, despite her own handmaid telling her the exact opposite. It takes everything in June's power not to speak up, but for once she keeps her mouth shut. It's funny, though, watching her be talked about as if Serena knows her feelings better than she does, her arch nemesis, and not being able to respond. Serena's speech also infuriated me because she starts with, I could have been kinder to her, but can't stop there. Instead, she turns herself into an equal victim. To be honest, she could have been kinder to me. Bitch, you locked her in a room for 2 weeks for a negative pregnancy test, slammed her head into a wall after a positive pregnancy test, tried to push her over the mental edge, like you did with the last handmaid who killed herself. When Nick came to Serena to tell her June needed mental health, instead of getting her that help, she forced Nick to marry Eden, a child. Was she actually trying to kill the baby she wanted to steal? Must be, because after June nearly bled out and lost the baby, Serena still forced Fred to violently rape her at 9 months pregnant. I luckily don't know this for sure, but if I were an actual victim of a rapist and watched a show telling me I should befriend that rapist, I would be even more furious than I already am at this bullshit.
Well said.
Also, you were completely right about the part that it's infuriating that she has the audacity to demand that June should have been kinder to her.
Yeah.
But the one thing that also made me livid was when she started with, I had a handmaid once. What about the one who hanged herself?
Oh, you're right.
Like, did you forget that you had one before, that you were part in
good point,
committing suicide?
Right.
Is this like, did it just slip your mind? Or
of course it did.
They wanted to slip our minds.
Yes.
She didn't even care when that woman killed herself. She cared. She was angry for herself. She was inconvenienced.
Yeah, she was.
She called her, what did she call her in the pilot episode to June?
Yeah, when she meets June.
Something about a dog.
A puppy that needed to be trained.
Yes. She didn't care about her.
She's awful. Oh, I hate her so much. I hate her so much. Yeah, and then she says that they're equal in vengeance and spite, and now a good friend of June's. And it's just so fucked up. Anyway, June has not accepted it yet, though, and hopefully she never does. But just the idea of it makes me seethe.
Yes. I love the eye acting.
Yeah.
First she rolls her eyes, but then after the line where Serena talks about, I think it was the part about she could have been kinder to me, and she just the nasty look that she shoots her from that. It was just hilarious to me. I mean, well deserved, but yeah, she was much more expressive as Serena was giving her little speech to the handmaids.
It's funny though, because June is usually really, really expressive, and she rarely can keep her emotions showing in her face. But having her face covered and you still see all of her reaction through her eyes, that's pretty good acting.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, a gorgeous Rita Blue joins Phoebe in efforts to draw Serena away from the handmaids, lest she recognize June, and she tells her the cake needs to be cut. First, Serena asks Rita to please say a few words, and so she addresses the rebellion about to occur. Set a goal, stick to it, and keep your eye on the prize. Now, Serena, let's go cut your poisonous cake. Oh, but first Serena threatens she'll be back for a photo without face masks. She's saying it nicely, of course, but obviously the girls need to get the fuck out of there, or at least the recognizable ones.
I just wanted to say about Rita, I have declared her the MVP of this episode. This, I felt like was her time to shine because she was the key element to this whole plan with the sedatives in the cake. And I love her just trying to deflect Serena in this moment, look, oh, come this way. And she's putting on her, just being super sweet with Serena and just knowing what the plan is. I loved her in this moment here.
I also loved her. I have to say that I think that Moira was my favorite character this episode. I really enjoyed Moira in the end, and Janine. I don't know. But anyway, I love Rita too. They're all great, and I love that they're having their moments to shine.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just me though? When did they say it was a sedative and not poison? Obviously, we can tell at the end when Belle wakes up and such. But is that the only time it becomes clear?
I think they say sedative later, but I think I also thought it was poison. Even when June tells Moira later that it'll take 1 to 2 hours and then they'll just fall asleep.
Yeah.
I still wasn't sure if that was to never wake up again or.
I still thought it was poison. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't actually know that it's just a sedative at this point.
And I think that was probably conscious by the writers, not just us, because what we're watching it, you're thinking, are they actually poisoning everybody?
Right.
Is she okay poisoning a pregnant Rose, and is she okay poisoning?
Well, and watching Nick and Rose eating the cake.
So I think that was a conscious thing. You do find out obviously at the end, but
yeah, and we just find out through Belle waking up. I was trying to remember when I did realize it, and it was the end of the episode for sure.
At some point, I do think during this episode, I did click to, I don't think they're killing them. I think they're just putting them to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe just because they wouldn't do that to necessarily everybody in attendance at the wedding. It's really they're targeting the commanders that the handmaids want to.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even the mistresses, if the mistresses are also awful.
And also there wouldn't be any need of the blades if they're just going to kill them by poison.
True. Yeah.
The cake comes out, and it's quite a cake. I wonder how much that cost the show. They cut into it, and we get to hear a little bit about what's in the cake from Serena and Moira. And that's what you just said. It's conveniently not a Joffrey-style immediate poison, but takes about 1 to 2 hours, and then they'll just fall fast asleep. And again, it's a sedative we learn later. The cake cart comes around, and we see the maker of the cake refuse, which is always quite sus. Lawrence trying to murder his wifey as much as possible. Just kidding. That's what I thought then when I thought it was poison. Because he's like, here, have some thirds, Naomi. But it's just sedative. But he does tell her she deserves it. Keep on eating. June and the handmaids are very suspiciously not eating their cake. I suppose they could claim their mouth covering gets in the way, but why did they give them slices? Anyway, once again, Phoebe saves the day by telling them they gotta go. So all the handmaids put their slices under the pews they're sitting on. And then is it June that Phoebe tells, we'll meet you at the Red Center? Was she filing out first?
I thought it was June that she was saying, I'll meet you at the Red Center.
Yeah, because June wanted to get Janine first, right?
Yeah, and because it's June, she'll want to be the center of attention, like Serena.
I just had a note about that, about the handmaids dropping the cake. I just think it's a bit conspicuous because, somebody's bound to see that, and that's exactly what happens.
Yeah, Phoebe should have just said, they can't eat because they're coverings. We'll take them home with them.
Just take it or whatever, put it in your pockets.
Or yes, exactly. Yeah.
But they also do this with the moon, because they have their wings down on the floor. And so when they get their wings to go, that's when they like hide the cake under the bench.
Right.
I think so. It's like one movement to make it less suspicious, I think.
I think the suspicious part, though,
is that they don't eat.
Suspicious part is sitting there with the cake on your lap for however long they did. Yeah, the whole group.
But maybe like you could excuse that with like, oh, it's just the handmaids and they're, I don't know, they still feel like they will upset the people if they eat that.
Right.
And it's not healthy food. It's just too much sugar and it will endanger your fertility and stuff like that.
Yes.
You know,
all that stuff we've forgotten.
I mean, it's like courtesy cake. It's like the macaron June got at this wife's party. Like,
I was gonna say that though, like they were given treats in the past.
Yeah.
Raquel air quoted treats.
Do you expect them to eat cakes sometimes? When June is pregnant, does he not get like treated by Rita as well? Like, or they say something back in season 1.
Oh, yeah, she gets better food.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you get ice cream once you have a baby.
Ice cream, yeah.
Nursing, that's what Janine gave her.
Don't think they're bothered about their health that much.
I guess it was June in the front because she's about to run right into Serena and Lydia talking when she turns around and makes haste out of there. But too late. Lydia is sure she's seen her and starts yelling June throughout the wedding. Don't tell me people did not notice Lydia running around screaming June, especially Nick. Luckily, the handmaid that Lydia does spin around is not June.
Somehow I didn't even think about that she's shouting June Osborne and Nick wouldn't even notice. Like, of course he would. I hadn't even noticed that. Thank you.
It's ridiculous. Just not Nick, like everybody that knows that.
Yeah, because she's very famous.
Like that is Gilead public enemy number 1.
Everybody would have, but of course I can just imagine what Nick would think if he hears that name shouted in the background.
And then Lawrence rushes to try and distract Lydia. Apparently Lydia bailed on his meeting, so she just flew there, realized she didn't want to miss the wedding and flew back, I guess. Anyway, as June's escaping, she sees Nick again, drinking again. Obviously very depressed. He turns his head as she walks by, like sensing her, but she continues walking by.
His heart does not glow when she's around, sadly.
It's like a dying little glow that he kind of feels, and he's like, well,
not strong enough, like in season 4.
It's so sad.
I think the way he looks over his shoulder is like he senses something, though. I mean, I don't know. It just, I think he does that for a reason. But again, she's just, obviously she's going to be. She's very affected. Like she walks in and like screeches to a halt when she sees him. And they make him in focus and she's sort of blurry in the background. So I can't really see like if her expression changes as she's looking at him, but she stands back there for several moments and just, again, observing him. And the way he's drinking is just clearly like, like Kate just said, I mean, he's drinking a lot. And I think this has become his normal. Like we've seen him in several scenes where he's just by himself, but drinking. And even in episode 6, when he gets the phone call, he puts like, I don't think you see him smoking when he's looking out the window, but then when he turns to answer the phone, he puts something down that sounds heavy, like he's putting a glass down. So I think he had a drink with him then too, which makes sense because of what he was thinking about.
Yeah, I would also have a drink with me in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I actually would like to mention here, we kind of talked about this a little in the last episode, that it oftentimes almost seemed like they were trying to take like Nick and June things and put them on Luke or Luke and June in an effort to get us to switch allegiances, which obviously would never work. But this is one thing, the drinking. So we noticed and mentioned on our podcast a few times probably that over the first 4 seasons of the show, Nick never drinks, which we thought was cool since his brother was an alcoholic and it made sense. And also you got to be alert and aware in a dangerous place like Gilead. It fits with his character, we thought, really well. And of course, Luke's ever-present companion in the first 4 seasons was a beer bottle. Something also understandable in the wake of losing his wife and daughter. Not commendable necessarily, but understandable. Anyway, ever since then, Luke put down the bottle and Nick picked up the drink. He's drinking in season 5 and he's increased it even more in season 6. And yeah, it just still feels more like they're like, oh, they like this about Nick. Let's do this to Luke instead, and let's do the opposite on Nick and see if that turns them off. And it's just, hopefully it's not true, but that's how it feels.
Missing the point on why people don't like Luke.
Right, yeah.
And why they like Nick.
Exactly.
It's like turning Luke into Rambo. I never didn't like him because he wasn't a fighter. That was never the thing for me.
Right.
No, it's the way he treats women.
Yeah.
No, I think it makes us actually sympathize more with Nick, I think, because it shows that he's coping in like this really sad, not healthy way. And He doesn't have, like we talked about earlier, he has absolutely no one he can talk to. Like, he needs a good therapist is what he needs. He needs somebody to actually talk to about all this stuff that he's carrying around that he can't tell anybody. And it's eating him up from the inside. I've just seen him breaking all season long. And this is like the worst thing has happened to him, which is losing the woman he loves. So this is like the lowest point we've ever seen him at, I think.
Yeah. And he needs, when that happened to June, Nick went to Serena and asked for a therapist. It would be lovely in episode 9 if June goes to Serena and asks for a therapist for Nick.
Wouldn't it be?
Can only dream.
I'm not going to hold my breath.
For that, she would actually need to see Nick break in, though, which...
She did, though. He showed her that the night.
I know, yeah, no, absolutely. But she needs to see it, like, actually pay attention to it.
She asked him twice if he was okay. And then even when he comes in for the Paris scene, I think she says, is something wrong? And, like, she was making those observations, but at no point did she ever really find out what's really going on with him.
Oh, and then she abandons it. Like,
yes.
She doesn't actually care anymore. He's dead to her now.
But that's why it's upsetting that we're not getting June taking in what Nick is going through. Like, she doesn't even know. Like, I know he said about the Guardian being really young last episode, but he didn't say that he was alive and had to kill him.
No.
Right. He still holds back. Yeah.
And, he's never given that option or that choice or that chance to actually speak to her.
To explain himself. Yeah.
So hopefully we'll find that. We'll get that eventually.
It's a thing that feels so resolvable. It's like, just have a really good conversation.
Yes.
And get it all out.
We've seen like fans and comments on the Instagram saying that it does not feel like it's the end of the world. Like, it is something that if they did sit down and talk about it, you think they could make it work and, find an understanding. But
well, she should also be able to understand because she's been through the same things herself. I mean, I'm sure I would hope anyway that she's carried around some guilt from some of the consequences of her own actions. And it's something that they could actually relate to each other on. But instead of that, she just treats him like a monster. And that doesn't seem fair.
Do we even see her struggling with like what she did to Matthew or Hannah's Martha? Forgotten her name.
Frances,
yes, thank you.
Only Omar. Honestly, like, she breaks after she finds out about Omar.
Yeah,
but that's it.
And that's when Nick helps her or tries to help her.
She seemed more angry with Frances, like she was blaming Frances.
God, she was furious.
So it's, yeah.
There was never really a, I'm sorry, I'm guilty, I'm drinking myself to dead because I'm so heartbroken about what I've had to do.
No.
Opposite to what they're showing us of Nick.
And her facial reactions too, in the way, like you're saying, in all of these incidents where she was perhaps involved in somebody's death. And of course, usually, we understand it's Gilead that's happened, which is why we feel this way about Nick.
Yeah, we understand that. How come she can't understand that?
But her facial expressions do not reflect like guilt and remorse, whereas Nick's, even, this late in the game, every death that he's caused this season, the Guardians, and then obviously the women, like, you see it written all over his face. It kills him.
Instantly, yeah.
It weighs on him, yeah.
You cannot say he's this big bad Gilead commander, and yet still these, like, small person deaths.
He hasn't become numb to it.
No.
He hasn't, like, it wasn't easy for him to do that. He didn't just walk away from shooting the commanders like he was cool as a cucumber.
Right.
And if they really wanted to show him as big bad Gilead, he would have been. He would have been like, that's just a normal day in Gilead for me.
Yes.
But that was not how he was acting at all.
It's really weird the way the writers and the executive producers and the showrunners are like, in all these interviews, they're trying to sell this different narrative, but they don't seem to be putting that in the actual show.
Exactly.
No, yeah.
We've seen Nick doing all of these things and hate it. That's literally the consistent personality he has. Like, whether we've been told that he's been doing all these things in the background.
Off screen. You can't do that. That's not how TV works.
That's not how it works. Yeah.
You can't make up a whole different narrative off screen.
No.
If you want us to believe that, show us.
Show us, don't tell us. And certainly don't tell us in interviews.
Yeah. That doesn't count.
We've been begging for more Nick for years.
Right. So they gave us more Luke.
Exactly.
That's what they do. I do think that there is an element of cruelty to this.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm sure that people are like, why are they talking about this in episode 8? This isn't about that. But you know why? Because you made it so distracting.
Yeah.
You've made this a huge upfront issue that it never had to be. If they had their little bump, I know they have to have a late season problem. If they had a little bump and it wasn't suddenly in episode 7, like he had murdered everyone's puppies and babies all in one,
willingly, like he did not choose to do that.
Yes, willingly. Yeah, she didn't even tell a single person at Mayday he was forced into a corner. She made it sound like he tricked her into telling her, and then then went and gleefully told his dad.
Yeah,
I feel like she doesn't even know that.
She knows that Wharton was up there, though, and yeah, she could ask for more details, but she knew that Wharton was up there, and that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And she needed to go because he might be in trouble.
She's treating him like he walked into that house and he just spilled the beans on the Mayday plan immediately, and that isn't what we saw. And I don't know if he even told her that.
If she thinks that, she's more of a monster than I thought. Like, she knows that that's not what happened.
Well, she should know better. She should know his character. She should know better.
Well, she did, because she said you saved yourself. So she did know intrinsically that he had a situation where he was in danger versus, like, he had to tell him something, I think, just by what she said.
But she also said you gave up those women. He didn't give up the women. He told the plan.
Right, which he told her repeatedly.
He didn't know what the consequence of that was going to be.
Right. I don't know, but my point is, I'm sure it's annoying anyone listening. Not anyone. No. I'm sure the Nick and June fans understand.
A lot of our,
I'm sure any not Nick and June fans are like, why are they talking about this? But the reason is, it is the most distracting thing that you've done.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because we want to focus more on the other storylines very badly.
I wanted to enjoy this episode more the first time I watched it because I was like, oh, wow, amazing visuals and montages and music and the plan. And I wanted to, but it's like the whole time I was just thinking like, okay, when are they going to talk?
We're still not going to have any resolution.
When are they going to resolve this? Because it is something that is so resolvable.
But also, that's all they're speaking about in interviews. They're not speaking about the rebellion. They're not speaking about the resistance. They're speaking about how Nick is horrible and this monster and he's killing puppies on his free time.
And we've finally seen his true face.
They're saying things that don't match what we're seeing on screen.
So they want to talk about this, so we should talk about this. And that's what the fans...
No, you're right.
Like a large part of the fandom wants us to talk about.
Yeah, the fandom's talking about it too.
Yeah. You read the comments on their Instagram and the socials. That's what people want to talk about.
Overwhelming.
Which shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
The focus should be on the rebellion.
They had done it in a different way, in a way that made sense. Mm-hmm. We would be focusing on the rebellion, but...
Not our fault.
No, they'd rather use this melodrama at the end of the show, and it's just taken away from the attention that the rebellion should have.
Mm-hmm. And we're already in episode 9, so hopefully, like, the beginning of episode 9 it's resolved, but even then, there's only 2 episodes left,
Right.
So... that's such a disservice to the rest of the story. Lydia's sharing her suspicions with Lawrence. She's sure June is here, and he assures her that June's in Alaska and she's hallucinating. And then Wharton and Serena arrive at their new home, and he even carries her over the threshold. Such a romantic. They kiss and have a moment for about a single moment before Serena turns and sees a handmaid kneeling. And she's the most fertile handmaid in Gilead, no less. The obvious fight ensues. Serena's fine with the handmaid slavery, but only as long as they get a good retirement package and she doesn't have one in her house. Rules for thee and not for me. I think we're supposed to feel like Serena's a victim in this scene, but again, her victimhood is so limited compared to the other women in Gilead, it's just laughable. She refuses it, though, and after toying with keeping her hostage, Wharton begrudgingly allows her to leave. While I hate Wharton, of course, I think Josh Charles absolutely crushes this role. He plays such a nuanced commander so well and so differently than the commanders we've experienced in the past. But what an idiot Wharton is for introducing the handmaid on the very night of the wedding. Silly, really, but in the interest of television time, I get why they need to do it this way. Anyway, the scene ends with Serena fleeing down the road with Noah, similarly to sometime in the end of season 5, around the same part of that season, but she's much warmer this time. I like that wrap or coat or whatever it is she's wearing. Awesome job, Leslie Kavanaugh, costume designer.
I hate the parallels that they're making between June and Serena, with her saying, you're just like the rest of them. And you can't be a good man, you're a commander.
Oh man, I can't.
So my notes on that.
It's also heavy-handed.
So obvious.
Yeah.
But like, because the only commander they're giving grace to is Lawrence at this point. So like I put in my notes, I guess he doesn't have a good enough sense of humor because apparently funny commanders like Lawrence are good commanders and are absolved. Lawrence is helping Mayday, but only because he knows these commanders want him dead. So he's helping to save himself. It's such a double standard when Nick got in trouble helping Mayday and is vilified for his survival instinct kicking in. He was a double agent and had to play on both sides. He's no good to Mayday and can't help June if he's dead. Nick's choice was not just selfish.
Thank you.
Yes, exactly.
Also, June is stuck in New Bethlehem. So yes, he saved himself, but he also saved June actively in that moment. The actual like betray June option button was saying, hey, she's down the street and she's the reason for all this.
Absolutely. That's what a betrayal is. What we saw wasn't.
And he's also in that situation because she put him there.
It's mind-blowing to me that none of this is getting through to, like, the writers don't understand.
I mean,
this.
the fans do understand that. I mean, at least the fans.
Absolutely.
Who are not just like following the Nazi narrative they are forcing on us since episode 2.
But this is the narrative that actually wrote into this show. Like, if you want to sell a different narrative, write it in, like, show it.
They've had seasons to write this into Nick's character if it's really what you wanted him to be. But they sidelined him instead. Every single season, they give him like just a handful of scenes. And now we're supposed to accept that, oh, his true character was in the 95% you didn't see. Sorry, no.
And also on that note, I think that one argument was he's a commander, therefore he's done terrible things. Well, Lawrence is a high commander, so I guess he's done even more highly terrible
architect
things.
of Gilead and the mastermind
of
behind
the
colonies.
But like, he makes us laugh, and everybody loves him. So
one of the worst things to happen in Gilead, he's responsible for those.
So Nick had to work on his one-liners.
And yet he still gets to be redeemable, apparently.
Yeah. You just can't tell us Nick is worse than him. Or the other founder of
apparently they are telling us.
But they are trying to, and that's why you can't buy it.
Also, this idea that Nick was climbing the ranks of Gilead because he was like, pushing himself up there and all these things he had to do. First of all, they could have shown us that if that's really what they wanted, the way they wanted us to see him. But what we did see, the reason he becomes an eye was so that he could take down commanders from the inside so that he could spy on other commanders. He's not one of the eyes pulling people off the streets, pulling innocent people out of their homes and interrogating them. At least that's not what we ever saw. We saw him spying on Waterford. We saw him turning Guthrie, who was the commander who came up with the Handmaid system. And then any promotion he got was a punishment on him, getting issued a woman. And then when he was made a commander and sent off to Chicago because
that's
Fred...
It.
Yeah,
those are the promotions we're talking about. That's the climbing of the ladder. Those are the promotions, and those are why he got them. After that, all we ever saw him do was playing along or acting out of duress. That's it. We never saw him being like a commander who was issuing orders to other people that was on Gilead level evil. We never saw him do that. No, because he's not what they're painting him as.
I've got a quote from the book about the eyes and the fact that he's a Mayday operative. Shall I read it?
Please.
So this is from the book. This marks him, Nick, as a member of the shadowy Mayday Underground. A number of Mayday operatives are known to have infiltrated the Gileadian power structure at the highest levels, and the placement of one of their members as a chauffeur to Waterford would certainly have been a coup, a double coup, as Nick must have been at the same time a member of the Eyes, as such chauffeurs and personal servants often were. And then we also had Margaret Atwood later on in a podcast by the BBC radio called Book Club saying he's an embedded resistance person. And that's a direct quote from that podcast.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for reminding us of this.
From the source.
The source material.
Think of the show we could have had if they had done that.
It would have been awesome.
Yeah. Like how incredible would Nick?
Amazing.
He's just the kind of character that would play perfectly as a Mayday.
The audience already loves him. Why not play into that instead of trying to make us hate him? I don't understand the logic behind that at all.
It would have been such a satisfying 10 of events.
But 2 seasons ago, after season 4.
Shock us. They want to twist.
Why is shock value valued more highly by writers?
Time and time again, shows keep making the same mistake and fans reject it every single time. I don't understand it.
And they just continue. But
they're disappointing.
It's not even shock. It's not even a twist. It's just stupid.
It is
stupid. Sorry, it just does not make any sense.
How bad the writing is.
It wasn't a twist. No, it wasn't. It wasn't like what a twist would be. It was if Nick had gone down into a secret lair inside his house, and there would be like all this evil stuff in there that we never knew that he was working on. That would be a twist. It wouldn't make any sense at all, but it would be a twist.
Like all the trackers he put into dolls for his daughters and stuff.
It's just that things have to make sense to be bought, right? Writers can write anything they want. They can write that Nick and June flew off in a spaceship to Mars and lived happily ever after, but we would reject that too. It is not that we only need to see Nick and June together and have a happy ending. We just need a logical conclusion to our characters that makes sense. And so just as we would not accept that Nick and June flew off in a spaceship to live happily ever after, we don't accept this, that he's suddenly the big bad Gilead commander, like the worst of all of them.
Absolutely.
Or even the same as all of them. Even the same as all of them. You have shown us specifically the opposite over almost a decade. And so of course we're not going to buy that.
Yeah, it is too late at this point to say, that isn't who he's been this whole time.
Right. And my favorite thing on social media is the people that don't even like Nick coming up and being like, this is ridiculous. I don't even like Nick. And trying to do this to him is insane. Right? They're like, I don't want Nick and June together, but trying to do this is so illogical. It's so illogical that it has brought the Nick haters out to say, hey, I'm sorry.
Because it's ruining the show for them. Like, all this focus is on Nick, the character they don't like anyway, just to turn the people who do like him against him. It's a waste of time.
Which is not going to work.
It's never going to work.
And even if they were successful in turning us against him, it doesn't make us Team Luke, if that's really what they want us to do.
That's the craziest part. Like, trying to switch, like, move these attributes from Nick to Luke, thinking, oh, now they're going to love Luke. Why do you not understand about people?
Every week they put up a post saying, what do you think about Luke now? It's like,
we still don't like him.
Try us again next week.
Oh, no.
I'm sure it'll go better.
Try again.
To be continued.
Okay, I don't even know where we are in this. Serena ran out.
Serena
Right,
just
well,
ran out.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, and another note, like completely different, because you asked about the Handmaid, like the new of Gabriel. That she was the old handmaid of Belle's father, like the really.
Oh, she was.
Okay. The one popping out twins with every year or something.
Oh,
I think Belle said it during the reception that it's kind of a wedding gift. It's the same handmaid, yeah. It's like the wedding gift of Belle's dad to Wharton. It's like giving him the best handmaid.
I completely missed that.
What a gross present.
Oh yeah, right. Oh, one more thing about Christina. It annoyed me also when Serena told her to leave this house and never come back. Like, she has that fucking luxury.
Where's she gonna go?
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, then she'll be hung on the wall. Great idea.
Well, she can probably just walk out Gilead, because that's what happens. People can walk in and out.
Seems like it, right?
So she probably just can.
Which is it? Is Gilead impossible to get out of, or is it completely free border?
We don't know. We don't know.
You don't feel the tension. You don't feel the stakes are high anymore.
No, and that's what the rebellion feels a little bit underwhelming. But like, yeah, we wanted this. We wanted this for like literally 6 seasons. But now it's like, really? Is it really that easy?
All right, and now we're back with a very observant Lydia. Right before she eats her own cake, she sees the cake on the floor, one person's. But it has interested her enough to look under the pew, where she sees a whole row of the cake and realizes they didn't eat it for a reason. That, plus she saw June earlier. She's smart. Then we have a scene of the handmaids walking down the street, peeling off for their houses. I guess these handmaids are off to kill their commanders now. June continues on, heading for Janine and Commander Bell. Lydia reaches the Red Center first and finds an aunt asleep at the desk. Phoebe comes out to confront her, tries to distract her with cookies, but it doesn't work. So Phoebe gets her switchblade out, switches the blade even, but sees the Guardian before she does the job. Lydia demands entry into the girls' dormitory, and Phoebe takes her time, but eventually lets her in. I guess she's given them enough time, because when Lydia walks in, they're all sleeping under their sheets. First one that she encounters, though, looks terrified, and pulling the sheet off, Lydia finds her fully clad in her red gown still. Before we can watch what happens next there, we have a quick scene at Belle's. June lets herself in, but decides to stand watch like an angry, avenging angel until Belle wakes up on his own. The ringing phone does that for him. He answers and is obviously getting some news about what's happening before she steps forward and he says her name. She kindly tells him it's nice to meet him before shoving her switchblade into his eye, and he dies after a few twitches on the floor. I'm assuming she chose his eye because Janine.
That's what I thought.
June takes a seat and swigs her drink before Janine walks in and simply says, thanks.
I mean, you can also spin it like an eye for an eye, or like no one's under your eye anymore.
Lots of eyebrow.
But what about the phone? Like, that's the biggest question I have, because he was talking to someone on the phone. Belle was talking to someone on the phone and was still operating when she stabbed him. And
yeah, they would have heard.
Yeah, somebody must have heard what happened.
Right, and he said her name, so.
Good point. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
Did you know anything about the abuse that Janine went through under Belle. Did she know anything about that?
I think that a Jezebel had told her that he was obsessed with her.
That's right.
Yeah.
Poor Janine. I don't think like any details, but
I don't like that she takes this kill for Janine. I feel like at the most she should have found Janine and then they could have done it together or handed her the blade. I don't like the fact that June did it. And I feel like the Janine who came down and said thanks was more like her old Janine self. She wasn't the Janine that we saw earlier this season at Jezebel's. Like changing her clothes changed her personality too.
Yeah, that occurred to me too.
To be fair, we gathered that she's been bitten, so I presume maybe she's just gone back to her old self because she doesn't have maybe the same sort of freedom that she did at Jezebel's. Not that was freedom, but I wonder if she's just gone back to.
But she was also beaten in Jezebel's by him. Like I think, like Belle said to Lawrence that he should bring her back intact, quote unquote, so he can like go rough with her or something like this.
Yeah, similar to what you said, Rachel. Fred was June's beast to kill. You know, it should have been Janine that took care of him. And I feel it's a bit selfish for her to, like, you know, take revenge on this man that she hardly knows.
He is one of the ones responsible for shooting the planes down. So she does have a reason to be vengeful against him too. It's just that we've recently seen him being just so incredibly awful and abusive to Janine that I think it would have been more satisfying at this point in time. They could have gone together. I mean, I would have loved to see them like take him out together instead of just June.
I actually agree with you fully, but counterpoint somebody said to me was Janine's not a killer. Has she ever killed anybody? I'm not sure that she.
No, that we know. Well, apart from like the participations or whatever.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, she should still have. I believe she should still have had the choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying that. You know, I think she probably would have.
Yeah, I do too. I would have killed that guy so much.
Yeah. I just feel like once again, June just puts her feelings above everybody else's.
She doesn't give her the option, like you just said. She doesn't give her the option.
Yeah. Right. Lydia's screaming some biblical shit at the handmaids. That's what happens next at the Red Center. And then she asks the Guardian to kill Phoebe, or at least hold a gun to her head. Moira stands up then to defend her. Lydia doesn't quite remember Moira, but she still manages to associate her with June. And I like Moira's answer when Lydia asks for her name. Why do you care? Why do you care when you stole it from me? My name is Moira, you fucking bitch. I like that. It was very good. I like Moira's delivery. Anyway, this time as Lydia yells, "Where is June Osborne?" from the trailer. I also like that line. June steps up behind her and tells her she's right there. And it's Lydia that did this, not the women. But June's gambling that Lydia is turning on Gilead after the things she's seen and learned that she can't unsee and unlearn. And they're not fallen women. They're rising up, their souls crying out for dignity and freedom. Lydia tells her not to presume to know what's in her heart or God's, which echoes what June said to Serena at the top of the stairs after Nick walked her up late in her pregnancy in season 2. June asks Lydia if there's a God that would empower a woman like Lydia to stand up for them because they've had enough. And it's then that Janine walks in and closes the deal. She's who Lydia needed to hear from. They hurt us, they rape us, and you gave us to them. If you want to save us, let us go. Please, Aunt Lydia. And that sound that Lydia made then, I cannot describe it, but it was very moving. She turns and lowers the Guardian's gun, and then she and Janine embrace. After Lydia tells her how sorry she is that she hurt her. As they embrace, everyone leaves, but of course June is the last one standing, with the last long look at Lydia, a nod of acknowledgement, and then the camera follows June backing out. But it stays in the room, and we then see Lydia pleading with God to help her as she falls to the ground. And Dad is a fucking legend. I love her. Oh, and our interview with her comes out this week. She is the sweetest and coolest fucking woman, you guys. Anyway, June has another voiceover about the clothes as they file out of the Red Center and run down the street to kill their commanders. She says, "The dress became our uniform and we became an army," which is similar to the end of a different season, right? When she said basically the same thing.
It's the one about they shouldn't have given us uniforms if they didn't want us to be an army.
Be an army, right.
The army line, wasn't that after they did not stone Janine to death?
Yeah,
and walk home?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like 109, right?
Yeah.
But I also like what you didn't mention until now, but the music that is playing and also during the scene before when June walks up to Belle and they come to Aunt Lydia, and it's the song "My Body Is a Cage" from Peter Gabriel, and it's just a melody at first, and then I don't know, actually it's always really just cool. A melody if I think about it now. But it's a cool choice of song, I think, for the whole montage. So it's like there's obviously no real lyric, but the melody is this particular song.
Fun fact, the only commander and handmaid we kind of see in the montage by the fire in their living room are actually the stand-ins that they've used since season 1 for this show. I love stuff like that.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
I have a note about the Aunt Lydia scene and the Guardian who's standing there with his gun raised. How does it work in Gilead? Do ants outrank guardians, or would a guardian? Yeah, the way she just like lowers his gun and he's just like sort of baffled or bewildered by this whole thing, and then she lets the handmaids go. The handmaids all leave, and he's just sort of looking around. And I'm like, okay, well, he is outnumbered. But then after they leave, I couldn't see the guardian at all when Aunt Lydia breaks down and is on the ground. And I'm like, okay, at minimum, shouldn't she be arrested for this? Like, if there's a guardian present.
Shouldn't he have reported them, like the guardians who Nick met at the border? And was like, there's
He's
protocol,
just sort of
know?
like baffled by what's going on, and he doesn't do anything. So I was a little no.
Yeah, no, that also struck me, honestly.
Again, they just get away with so much stuff like before, like back in season 1 and 2, the Guardians would just shoot anybody on the street. Like, remember when
that was scary.
It's episode 7 of season 2 when there was like this random Martha going down the street and they just shoot her.
He's holding a machine gun, so all he would have had to do was open fire on all of them, which is I think what normally would happen if they're being defiant in this way. So
well, I don't know, because Jaime's they don't kill them.
We try not to kill them
on the spot because because something will happen to them. But yeah, they are valuable. But I don't think.
But at least Aunt Lydia, because she's the one who's letting them go, I would think he would punish her in some way in this moment.
Yeah.
It seemed like he scattered with the hands because I didn't see the guardian after the handmaids left.
I think it's probably best for him to have done that, but I hope he keeps going over the border.
Only be one guardian as well, like it makes no sense that there would only be one person guarding the whole Red Center. Like
they were asleep. Maybe they were still asleep.
They were asleep, so what's the point in them? They're just asleep.
What I found was interesting that Aunt Lydia was still very much into this like super indoctrinated Gilead belief that in the beginning, like, I'll shoot on Phoebe, or how can you talk back to me, to Moira? Who are you even? You are the handmaid. You have to behave like this, like that, blah, blah, blah. Like it is your full belief, and it's only then when June and Janine come and call her out and vouch kind of for seeing something better in her, some sort of compassion and empathy or whatever, that she changes her ways and that she changes her stance on the situation and lets them go, which is interesting because if we compare it to Nick in these kind of situations, he has nobody who stands up for him. Like, he's literally alone. He needs to make his decisions on his own. He does not have anybody backing him up. Quite the contrary now. He's like, he lost the last person he kind of trusted and was close to. But with Aunt Lydia, who did all those bad things to all of those girls, it's easily to just forgive her. It's easily for Janine to just go to her and hug her, when 2 episodes prior she even said to Aunt Lydia, I cannot ever forgive you if you not bring my daughter. So, but then it's like super easily to forgive this cruel woman who poked her eye out and whatever cruel things to all of those girls, but
mutilated Emily as well,
and does it because she believes in that, not because she has to do it. It's because she wanted to. She chose to.
She's not saving herself. She's literally abusing these women because she wants to break them and make them compliant.
And that makes me so mad that she's like, it's so easy to redeem the, like, Serena and Olivia, like the women. And all about the women. And then it's like June also comes in with that, like, I have an immaculate soul given by God. Yeah, because you're a woman.
And she's June.
Yeah, it's like, is it because you're a woman that you've got an immaculate soul? Or is it because you're human and everybody has the chance to have that? These double standards make me so mad by now. It's like,
really bad message to send out. Like,
exactly.
And I know this meant to be, they've used the phrase cautionary tale. And it should be, but it shouldn't be men versus women. That's not what this should be about. Is the people in power, people that abuse the power. And we have seen Serena, and we have seen Lawrence, and we have seen Lydia abuse that power. They've shown us many times.
Right.
We haven't seen Nick abuse that power. We haven't shown that. We've seen the opposite from him. We've seen him using his power to help June constantly, and even in episode 6 he was helping the resistance, he was helping Mayday and their plans with getting those documents from the safe and he gets in trouble and he doesn't get to save his life. He doesn't get to be human. Yeah, it's a really wrong. I know. I feel they selling it as to be like this feminist tale, and
it is not feminist to hate all men.
Crab and
sorry.
Yeah, it is not. It's not.
And in
it's
fact,
you're just redeeming women that are horrible to other women, willingly for their own part. Again, everything Serena's done to save herself, it was just because she wanted to steal a baby from this woman, and Lydia just wanted to break all these poor girls. The message that we should forgive them. They're nice people because now they're realizing that what they've done.
It's not even true.
Yeah, it's not even true. Yeah.
We're condemning the male character that has supported and facilitated our female protagonist agency more than anybody else in the show. Mm-hmm. He has always wanted her to make the decisions, no matter how idiotic they are. He's there to facilitate it, to help protect her.
In addition to that, he hasn't only helped June. I mean, when I think about the risk he took taking the letters to Canada and giving the letters to Luke, he didn't know he was going to meet up with Luke, but then having the letters get out, he facilitated all that, and nobody asked him to do that. June didn't ask him to do that. He saved the letters when June was trying to burn them. That's not a man who is supporting Gilead. No. It's the exact opposite of that. And that wasn't even solely to help June, because all of those women's voices got out. So that's what a male feminist ally does. And that is, I felt like it was such an important role for him to play, because in any movement like this where women are, actually, I'm not going to say it that way, because all people are oppressed in this society. And that was the point that Margaret Atwood was trying to make. In any type of totalitarian regime like this, all people are oppressed except those at the top. Even now at this point in the show, Nick still isn't at the top. He's still being oppressed in his own way as well, even though I know it's not on the same level, but still.
Yeah, and on the note of, because I think it's important to, even though we already talked about it several times, but I think
let's reiterate it.
It's important that we repeat these things now, because they try to feed us a narrative that does not align with what we have been shown and what was established for seasons, and to remind the general audience, who is not easily swayed by whatever comments they are making. As you said, he's been an ally. He's been a feminist ally. He's, even during the Jezebel's time, when he was having this beneficial relationship with Beth, he brought the Jezebel women contraception, so they would not get pregnant.
Right.
He did not do it for June. He was trying to help those women,
As you said also already, Rachel, pre-June, pre-everything.
Yeah.
He became an eye just to get Guthrie's arrested and killed, because he started the Handmaid system, because that first handmaid killed herself. And he did not have a relationship with that woman. He just cares about women.
It opened his eyes. I think he had maybe been going along to just for survival, but then that happened and it opened his eyes that how horrific this was for the women who were affected.
Yeah.
We've also seen him being really friendly and comfortable with the Martha network
in Chicago
episode.
Yeah, where did that go?
4, I think it was. That went nowhere.
In the dumpster.
That was such an important moment for me.
But you can tell those women knew him, and they knew him for a very long time. They're incredibly comfortable with him. They weren't scared of him.
Yes, exactly. And they treated him with attitude.
Yeah, they were friends.
You don't yell at a commander, so they get off, they're rolling their eyes, they're mad at him. You don't do that to a commander unless you know that he's safe.
And those were the people that were working for Mayday and the Resistance. They were the Martha network.
He says this isn't about business. So what business was he doing with Mayday?
Right.
What business were they doing? Yeah.
Also, the people who took photos for him, friendlies, and not my underlings from the eyes or something. It calls them friendlies. So it's
so many missed opportunities with this character.
Words have meaning and weight.
He had those lines in the show. That's canon. So there was some of that going on, but it seemed like it's starting with season 5. It was no, we're just going to cut all that out.
Well, even since then, though, we've seen him in commander meetings. I imagine they spend a lot of time in stupid, pointless meetings. He just sits there on the edge, not having any power or anything to say. He's not
following orders. That's what we've seen him following orders. He says, "Yes, sir. Yeah. Okay, sir." This is what he does. He doesn't. We've not been shown him having any
called
power.
a Boy Scout. Yeah, right.
They make fun of him.
They made a point of saying that he doesn't go to Jezebel's. He's not like the rest of them. They literally made a point of showing him being different, and still we've been told that this is who he is, and
No, he's the same.
The show was always so good about nuance and having layers, and like the point we were trying to make with true feminism is not men are bad, women are good. We had that set up originally with Serena being a woman but not a good woman, and Nick being a man but not a bad man in Gilead. And in order for any type of movement like this to succeed, you need to have the good men on the inside who help the women to rise up and take over. And why that part of Nick's character couldn't have been maintained doesn't make any sense to me.
Because now we have Lawrence, who again was a bad man and has been a bad man. We've shown him being a bad man.
Yeah, and also what really irks me is the fact that, because you also mentioned Lawrence again, is that the only person who gets labeled a Nazi in the show by now is Nick. Whereas, like everybody who has power, Lawrence, Serena, Wharton, Aunt Lydia, every Guardian, every single one of them are Nazis.
That's right.
If you follow that.
Right. Why is Nick the only one?
Nick's the only one
called a Nazi.
Why is Mayday suddenly working with a Nazi commander, which is Lawrence, if Nazis cannot be trusted?
Yeah. It was the same with like the Swedes back in season 3 when they were willing to work with Serena and Fred. Horrible people, right? Established horrible people. People that were founders
the worst
of
people. Right.
Gilead. The worst people. They were completely fine working with them, but somehow what Nick has been doing behind the scenes that they could not be bothered to show us.
So horrible. We've never even learned what it was.
Somehow, because they don't care enough to tell us.
Right. They wouldn't work with
They've never
Nick.
cared enough to tell us.
Right. Yeah. And you can't, like, because of the comparison of the two, it's crazy.
Yeah. But they were working with Fred and Serena. Exactly. They were working with them.
He didn't do anything worse than Fred and Serena, who literally wrote the entire blueprint for this land. But, like, the inconsistent writing, it's so inconsistent. You just have to dismiss, like, all of it, you know? That's why you lose the ability to suspend disbelief when nothing makes sense, right? You can suspend disbelief in a world that has made sense and is consistent, but you can't do that in this case. Okay, sorry. We've really gone off on a lot of tangents here because the last episode was so distracting, but this episode ends with the quote from the book, and so I step up into the darkness within, or else the light.
I just wanted to share some context about this line, the way it's been used in the book. So this line is also being used in the show back in season 1. That's how season 1 ends. And it's also how the book ends. That's the last line of the book. And very similarly to the way season 1 ends, with that scene of June and Nick in her room and the eyes coming to get her, the book has a very similar scene, but there's some differences between the two. So in the show, Nick walks to June and tells her, go with them, trust me. But in the book, it's slightly different. And I'm just going to read these from the book. So she's waiting in her room and she sees the ice van coming in. And she gets really stressed and she gets really scared. And in the book, the handmaid doesn't actually know that Nick is an eye. She suspects so, but she doesn't actually get any confirmation of that, unlike in the show. So this is from the book. I expect a stranger, but it is Nick who pushes open the door, flicks on the light. I can't place that unless he's one of them. There was always that possibility. Nick, the private eye. You shit, I think. I open my mouth to say it, but he comes over close to me, whispers, it's all right. It's Mayday. Go with them. He calls me by my real name. Them, I say. I see the two men standing behind him, the overhead light in the hallway, making skulls of their heads. You must be crazy. My suspicion hovers in the air above him. A dark angel warning me away. I can almost see it. Why shouldn't he know about Mayday? Trust me, he says, which in itself has never been a talisman, carries no guarantee. And then, similarly to what happens in the show, she's guided by these men, which later on in the symposium of the book, it says that he called in a rescue team of eyes who may not have been authentic, but in any case were under his orders. That's said in the book as well. So which means that he was the one that organized her escape in the book, and by her going with these guardians of these eyes that were under his orders, and they were most likely Mayday, because that's what he says. She goes into the van and says that quote, so I step up into the darkness within, or as the light. And by her saying that she may be choosing to believe that there is a light and there's a positive outcome, she's choosing to trust Nick. And again, later on in the book, it said that the reason why we know that he did manage to get her out and that she was right in trusting him is that the mere existence of the tapes retailing the Handmaid tale is proof that he managed to get her out. So also he's the main reason why the Handmaid actually gets to tell her tale.
I love that.
So he gives her voice back.
He does. And he is Mayday. He's been said again to be Mayday in the book. Source material.
All right. I guess that's a wrap on our discussion of season 6, episode 8. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.